Welcome back to the Man Cave. We have here a 1958 Corvette that was purchased by a customer. So this car came with the original motor, and so that's what's going to happen. The original motor is going to go back into this car. However, the customer wanted to see about taking the 454 that is currently in this car and putting it into another car that he owns. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and check the integrity of this motor before we pull it out of the car. So the customer has tried to start this motor, and he told me that it wouldn't start, and he also told me that it was getting gas here onto the manifold. So I really haven't checked this car out, but what I suspect is I suspect that something in the float system has become gummed up a little bit because this car sat for a while. And so I suspect that one of these carburetors has a float that is sticking. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and this car has an electric fuel pump on it. And so we're going to go ahead and turn that fuel pump on so that we can see if we can figure out where the gas is coming. So we've got the fuel pump running. You can see that there is fuel just spraying out of this carburetor. What I suspect is that the float system in this carburetor has been gummed up, and that's what's causing it to lose gas. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the top from this carburetor. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the fuel lines from both of these carburetors, and we are going to take the screws out from the perimeter of the top of this carburetor. We're also going to remove this lever that goes to the accelerator pump so that we can pull the top of this carburetor out, and then we're going to clean the needle unseat, and we're going to set the floats, and we'll probably go ahead and do both carburetors while we're doing it. So we've got the top pulled off of this carburetor, and in looking at this, I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and pull everything out of the carburetor, and I'm going to go ahead and put it all in a carburetor cleaner. And the reason is, so you look down in here, you can see a lot of trash down in there. And then you can see that the color of this gas is a little bit dark. And if you look here, you can see that we've got a little buildup on these metering rods. And so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to take everything apart, and I'm going to put it all in some carburetor cleaner, and I'm going to clean it up. We're going to do this carburetor, get it all put back together, then we'll do this carburetor, get it all put back together, and then we'll go ahead and come back and do some more video. So we have this carburetor ready to go back together, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I'm going to set these floats. So what the specification is for these is 5/16 from the top. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 5/16 drill bit, and I'm just going to slide it in between the base of the carburetor and the float, just like that. You can see right there, it just starts to move. I'm going to do the other side, and it is going to be exactly the same. Now, since this is a dual carburetor setup, I am going to pull the other carburetor apart and make sure that we have all of the same components inside of that carburetor that we have in this carburetor. I suspect that we do, but I want to double check before I go any further. So I'm going to put this top back on the carburetor. I'm going to pull the other one apart, put it back together, and then we'll bring you back and we'll show you what's next. So now that we have the carburetors put back together, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change the oil in this car. For a couple of reasons. The first reason is that I know that this car has been setting for a while and hasn't been started. The other reason is that this car was flooding so bad that I suspect that we got some raw fuel down into the oil and mixed with the oil. And so in order to make sure that we have good oil in it, I'm going to go ahead and just do an oil change. So now that we have the fuel problem fixed on this car, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and test spark. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to remove the spark plug wire from this back spark plug on this side. And then I'm going to install my spark tester. I'm going to install another wire that goes right down to the spark plug. We're going to set this up here so that I can see it while I'm turning the ignition. No spark. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this wire back off, and then I'm going to hook me up a ground that's going to go directly to the battery. Now this is going to tell me whether I have a bad spark plug, and that's what's causing my no spark issue. So we still have no spark, and this is kind of what I expected to see happen with this car. This car has breaker points in the ignition, and I suspect that the key has been left on, and that those breaker points have had an arcing in them, and it's caused them to not shut off the electrical system like they're supposed to. And so I'm going to take the distributor cap off of this, and I'm going to file down the points and adjust the points, and then we'll see if we get spark at that point. We have got the points adjusted on this car. We're going to go ahead and recheck for spark. I've got my spark tester in line again. We're going to go ahead and turn the car over. You can see that it's got good spark. So we're going to go ahead and start the car. That little bit of a hesitation when we were trying to start the car means that the timing is just a little bit too advanced. So I'm going to go ahead and back the timing off the touch, then we're going to restart it. So that's just a little bit better, but it still is just a little bit too advanced. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hook up my timing light, my dwell meter, and my tach, and we're gonna get everything set up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what's gonna be next. So we've got this engine tuned up pretty well, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna let it cool off a little bit, and then we're going to do a relative compression test, and then we're gonna pull one spark plug and do an actual compression test. And that's going to tell us the integrity of this motor. So we've hooked up our oscilloscope to the positive battery cable on the car, and we've gone into our settings and we've gone into relative compression. And now what we're going to do is, I've disabled the ignition again. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn the car over, and it's going to give me some measurements here on the screen. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about what's going on here. So this line, as it jumps up right here, this is the amperage that it draws, the starter draws to get the engine turning. And it drops back down here, and then you can see how it just kind of levels out. Now, all of these bumps on this particular engine are fairly distinguished, and they're about equal, which tells me that all of the cylinders on this engine are participating about the same. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pull a spark plug, and I'm going to do an actual compression test, and that's going to tell me how much compression the entire engine has. I suspect it's fairly good because of the way that these bumps look in this particular case. So I've gone ahead and pulled the back spark plug on this side of this engine. It's the easiest one to get to. We're going to go ahead and turn the engine over a couple of times. We've hooked up a compression gauge, and we're going to go ahead and see what the actual compression is on this engine. You can see that this engine has about 140 pounds of compression. Not super good, but fair. So we'll talk to the customer and see what he wants to do. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoy our videos. Like, subscribe, leave comments. I will try and get back to you. If you have ideas for videos, let me know and I'll try and make them happen. Thank you.